Osaka, I heard a very strange account of the antique initiation rituals of conductors. They were brought on board on a very cold winter's night when the train was stopped and no one lingered in the cars. The senior engineers gathered tightly in the conductor's cabin. They put the earnest young man's hands onto the control console and anointed them with viscous oil from the engine before pulling loose several wires and tying them into knots around the man's fingers. He was then told the secret name of the train, which he could reveal to no one, and they cut into the third finger of his left hand, mingling his blood with the oil, which was then returned to circulation in the engine. In this way, the train became the beloved of the conductor. And the man who told me this story said it felt very much like a grave wedding service. There is a story told in Aomori province concerning the patronage of trains. The kami of the wind and the kami of engines struggled over who would bless the trains of Japan. There was a great consternation as to who should receive the numerous silent prayers for punctuality, for speed, for unmolested progress. The kami of wind stood upon a platform of orange clouds and argued that the trains belonged to him, for their great speed sent up such currents of air, and the high platforms of the Shinkansen entered into his territory, and he shook them daily with his breath. The kami of engines, not very beloved among her kin, stood upon a dais of crushed automobiles and sewing machines drenched in old oil. Through her greasy hair she glowered and said that any machine which churned fuel and 8 kilometers was hers, and hers alone to adore. While their assembled family slept, the kami of wind stole onto his opponent's dais with the intention of destroying her and assuming the trains for himself without contest. He drew a great breath to push through her heart. The kami of engines stepped into his arms and kissed him, pulling him into her with great violence, so great that the whole of his breath was spent into her. The air rushing through the heart of the kami of engines only fed the fires within her, sending them high into heaven, and she consumed him utterly. And thus the trains worshipped with the song of their passing the kami of engines with her long, oily hair. A folktale current in Hokkaido just after the war, which passed from conductor to conductor, held that the floor of heaven is laced with silver train tracks, and the third rail is solid pearl. The trains that ran along them were fabulous even by the standards of the Shinkansen of today. Carriages containing whole pine forests hung with golden lanterns, carriages full of rice terraces, carriages lined in red silk where the meal service brought soup, rice balls, and a neat lump of opium with persimmon tea poured over it in the most delicate of cups. These trains sped past each other, utterly silent, carrying each a complement of ghosts who clutched the branches like leather handholds, who plucked the green rice to eat raw, and fell back insensate into the laps of women whose faces were painted red from brow to chin. They never stopped, never slowed, and only with great courage and grace could his spirit slowly progress from car to car, all the way to the conductor's cabin, where all accounts cease, and no man knows what lies therein. In Hokkaido, where the snow and ice are so white and pure that they glow blue, it is said that only the highest engineers of Japan Railways know the layout of the railroads on the floor of heaven. They say that those exalted engineers are working slowly, generation by generation, to lay the tracks on earth so that they mirror exactly the tracks in heaven. When this is done, those marvelous carriages will fall from the sky, and we may know on earth without paying the terrible fare of death, the gaze of the red women, the light of the forest lanterns, and the taste of persimmon tea.